Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back, way back, to a time when the human body wasn't just a vessel, but a living, breathing canvas, etched with stories, symbols, and secrets. Imagine it, if you will, a world before written language, before grand temples, even before the wheel. A world where the most profound statements weren't carved in stone, but into the very skin of a person. You're not just thinking about a simple piercing or a small tattoo. You're envisioning a landscape of human forms transformed, stretched, marked, and adorned in ways that speak of ancient mysteries and forgotten meanings. Honestly, if you lived back then, you'd probably be too busy trying to find your next meal or avoid being eaten yourself to worry about whether your earlobe was stretched enough. You probably wouldn't even survive long enough to get your first modification. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on a windswept plain. Thousands of years ago, the air crisp and clean, carrying the scent of distant fires and wild earth. Before you, a figure emerges from the shadows of a cave entrance. Their skin isn't smooth and unblemished like your own. No, their face is subtly marked, perhaps with a series of faint lines tracing the cheekbones, or a darker pigment outlining the eyes. Their earlobes might be elongated, adorned with simple bone or shell ornaments. This isn't just decoration, it's a profound statement, a visual language etched directly onto the body, speaking volumes about who this person is, where they come from, and their place in a world far removed from our own. You feel a sense of awe, a quiet recognition of humanity's ancient impulse to transform itself, to make the ordinary extraordinary. Imagine yourself in a small, dimly lit hut, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and fear. Outside, the wind howls, carrying with it whispers of unseen entities, or perhaps the chilling news of a sudden, inexplicable illness sweeping through the village. A mother cradles her newborn, her brow furrowed with worry. Before the child is even a few days old, a small, intricate mark might be etched onto their skin, or a tiny piercing made. Not for decoration, but for defense. You feel the palpable anxiety, the desperate human need to protect the vulnerable from forces beyond their comprehension. This isn't just about faith, it's about survival, about drawing lines of defense on the very canvas of the body. A common historical fact is that the practice of body modification is incredibly ancient, predating written history and spanning nearly every continent, from the frozen steppes of Siberia to the sun-baked deserts of Africa, from the lush islands of the Pacific to the dense forests of the Americas. Humans have, for tens of thousands of years, reshaped their bodies in myriad ways. This wasn't a fleeting trend. It was a deeply ingrained aspect of human culture, driven by a complex interplay of spiritual beliefs, social structures, aesthetic ideals, and practical needs. It was like the original global fashion statement, but with a lot more commitment and a lot less fast fashion. A common historical fact is that across numerous ancient cultures, body modifications were imbued with apotropaic properties, the power to avert evil or bad luck. These marks were not merely symbolic, they were believed to be active charms, spiritual armor, or visual deterrence against malevolent spirits, curses, or the dreaded evil eye. In a world where illness and misfortune were often attributed to supernatural causes, such physical interventions offered a tangible sense of control and security. It was like having a very personal, very permanent bodyguard. But instead of muscles, it was made of ink or scars. The earliest direct evidence of tattooing, for instance, comes from Ötzi the Iceman, a natural mummy discovered in the Alps, dating back over 500 to 300 years. His body bears 61 tattoos, mostly simple dots and lines, clustered on his lower back, joints, and ankles. While the exact purpose of Ötzi's tattoos is still debated, many scholars believe they were therapeutic, perhaps related to acupuncture points, rather than purely decorative or symbolic. Imagine getting a tattoo, not for a cool design, but because your knee was aching. It certainly gives a new meaning to pain is beauty, doesn't it? Consider the ancient Egyptians, who, while not as heavily tattooed as some other cultures, utilized specific tattoos for protective purposes. Images of the dwarf god Bez, a fierce protector of households, women, and childbirth, have been found tattooed on female mummies. These weren't just decorative, they were believed to actively guard against evil spirits during the vulnerable processes of pregnancy and birth. Similarly, geometric patterns or dots on the abdomen or thighs might have been intended to protect fertility or ward off misfortune. Imagine getting a tattoo, not for a cool design, but because you genuinely believed it would keep your baby safe from demons. It certainly gives a new meaning to protective parents, doesn't it? Beyond tattooing, scarification is another ancient form of body modification. This involves creating raised scars on the skin through various methods, such as cutting, burning, or rubbing irritants into wounds. Unlike tattoos, which rely on pigment, scarification manipulates the skin's natural healing process to create permanent, textured designs. This practice is particularly prominent in cultures with darker skin tones, where tattoos might not show up as vividly. You might see intricate patterns of raised welts forming geometric shapes, animal motifs, or abstract designs, each telling a story without a single word. Another striking example comes from various indigenous cultures, where scarification patterns were believed to offer spiritual defense. Among some groups, specific raised scars on the face or chest were thought to deflect evil spirits, making the wearer less appealing or even invisible to malevolent entities. The intricate, often labyrinthine, designs could be seen as spiritual mazes, confusing and trapping any harmful influences before they could reach the individual. It was like a very complex, very painful spiritual maze, but the prize was not getting cursed. The motivations behind these earliest modifications are shrouded in the mists of time, but archaeologists and anthropologists have pieced together compelling theories. One primary driver was likely identity and belonging. In small, tightly knit groups, visual markers on the body could immediately communicate a person's lineage, tribe, or family. Imagine meeting someone for the first time, and before they even speak, you know their entire life story just by looking at the marks on their face. It was like a medieval ID card, but much more painful to acquire. The placement of these protective marks was often highly strategic. Tattoos or scars might be placed on vulnerable points of the body, such as joints, orifices like around the mouth or eyes, or areas believed to be entry points for evil spirits. The neck, wrists, and ankles were common sites for protective bands of tattoos or scarification, acting as spiritual barriers. Imagine wearing a magical bracelet or necklace, but it's permanently etched onto your skin, and its purpose is to keep bad vibes out. Another powerful motivation was spiritual connection. Ancient peoples lived in a world where the natural and supernatural realms were deeply intertwined. Body modifications could serve as conduits to the spirit world, ways to invoke protection from deities, or to channel the power of ancestors or animal spirits. A tattoo of a powerful animal might not just represent that animal. It might be believed to imbue the wearer with its strength or cunning. Scarification patterns might mimic sacred symbols or constellations, linking the individual to the cosmic order. It was like wearing a lucky charm, but the charm was permanently etched onto your skin, and it might have involved a shaman and a very sharp bone. A unique detail in some ancient cultures was the belief that the pain endured during the modification process itself contributed to its protective power. The suffering was seen as a sacrifice, a payment to the spirits, or a purification that made the individual stronger and less susceptible to evil. In some cases, the blood shed during tattooing or scarification was believed to create a powerful spiritual bond, sealing the protective charm onto the body. It was like a very intense spiritual vaccination, where the needle was a sharpened bone, and the immunity came from the pain. A unique detail, often overlooked, is the potential role of body modification in early forms of medicine or healing. As seen with Utsi, the placement of his tattoos on areas associated with pain or ailments suggests a belief in their therapeutic properties. Similarly, some scarification practices might have been used to release bad blood or to create a localized counter-irritation for pain relief. This intertwining of ritual, aesthetics, and rudimentary medicine highlights the holistic worldview of ancient cultures, where the body was not just a physical entity, but a complex system of interconnected energies and spiritual forces. It was like a very early form of physical therapy, but with a lot more bleeding and a lot less insurance coverage. Historians still debate the precise interplay between the symbolic and the literal in these protective practices. Did people truly believe that a tattoo could physically repel a demon? Or was it more about psychological comfort and a visual affirmation of their faith in protective forces? It's an ongoing academic discussion, as the line between superstition and genuine spiritual belief can be incredibly fluid in ancient contexts. Perhaps it was a bit like wearing a lucky charm today. You might not literally believe it stops bad things, but it makes you feel better, just in case. Historians still debate whether the earliest body modifications were primarily driven by aesthetic desires, spiritual beliefs, or practical needs for identification and healing. It's an ongoing academic discussion, as the evidence is often fragmentary and open to multiple interpretations. Perhaps it was a bit of all three, a complex tapestry of motivations woven into the very fabric of ancient life. Like trying to figure out if someone got a modern tattoo because it looks cool, has deep meaning, or they just lost a bet. Piercings, particularly of the ears, nose, and lips, also held significant protective meanings in many ancient societies. Beyond aesthetics or status, the insertion of metal, bone, or shell into the body was often believed to ward off evil spirits. The glint of metal, the sound of dangling ornaments, or the very act of creating an opening in the body could be seen as deterring malevolent entities. For instance, nose rings in some cultures were believed to protect the wearer from respiratory illnesses or to prevent evil spirits from entering through the nostrils. It was like a very fashionable air filter, but for your soul. The tools used for these ancient modifications were rudimentary but effective. For tattooing, sharp bone splinters, thorns, or sharpened pieces of obsidian could be used to puncture the skin, with soot, plant extracts, or mineral pigments rubbed into the wounds. For scarification, sharp flints, shells, or even heated sticks could be employed to cut or burn the skin. The process was undoubtedly painful, often prolonged, and carried significant risks of infection. Yet, the willingness to endure such discomfort speaks volumes about the profound significance of these practices. Imagine getting a tattoo with a piece of sharpened rock, and then rubbing campfire ash into it. Suddenly, your modern tattoo gun doesn't seem so bad, does it? The materials used in these protective modifications were also carefully chosen for their perceived magical or spiritual properties. Iron, for example, was often believed to repel evil spirits due to its strength and association with tools and weapons. Certain stones, shells, or plant materials were thought to possess inherent protective energies, and would be incorporated into piercings or used as pigments for tattoos. Imagine choosing your jewelry not just for its sparkle, but because it was believed to literally fight off bad juju. The act of receiving a body modification was often a ritualistic event, accompanied by ceremonies, chants, and perhaps even altered states of consciousness. It wasn't a casual decision, it was a profound transformation, a rite of passage that marked a significant moment in a person's life. The pain endured during the process was often seen as a necessary sacrifice, a test of endurance that purified the individual and prepared them for their new status or spiritual connection. It was like a very intense graduation ceremony, where the diploma was literally etched onto your body. The act of receiving a protective modification was often accompanied by specific rituals, chants, or blessings from a shaman or spiritual leader. These ceremonies were designed to activate the protective power of the mark, imbuing it with spiritual energy and ensuring its efficacy. The process was not casual, it was a sacred undertaking, a deliberate invocation of benevolent forces to safeguard the individual. It was like a very serious blessing ceremony. But the blessing was permanently etched onto your body. The universality of body modification across diverse ancient cultures suggests a deep-seated human impulse. Whether it was the elongated skulls of ancient Peru, the lip plates of African tribes, the stretched earlobes of indigenous Americans, or the intricate tattoos of Polynesian navigators, the human body served as a canvas for expression, a living testament to cultural values and individual journeys. These practices were not isolated curiosities. They were fundamental aspects of identity, communication, and spirituality. The fear of the evil eye, a malevolent gaze believed to cause misfortune, illness, or even death, was widespread across many ancient cultures, particularly in the Mediterranean and Middle East. Body modifications were a common defense against this unseen threat. Tattoos of eyes or specific geometric patterns could be placed on the body to deflect or absorb the evil gaze. Similarly, wearing prominent jewelry, especially in the form of an eye like the modern Nazar amulet, was believed to draw the evil eye away from the wearer. It was like a very ancient, very permanent pair of sunglasses. But for your soul, designed to block out bad vibes, the social implications of these modifications were immense. They could signify age, marital status, achievements in hunting or warfare, or even religious devotion. A young person might receive their first scarification mark upon reaching adulthood. A warrior might earn a new tattoo for each enemy vanquished, or a priest might bear sacred symbols that denoted their spiritual authority. These marks were a public record of a person's life, visible for all to see, a silent biography etched onto the skin. It was like a very literal resume, but instead of listing your skills, it showed your triumphs and your transformations. The protective power of these modifications was often believed to extend beyond the individual, safeguarding their family, their home, or even their community. A warrior might bear protective tattoos to ensure victory in battle, thereby protecting his entire tribe. A mother might have marks to ensure the health of her children. These were not selfish acts, they were communal defenses, contributing to the overall well-being of the group. It was like a very personal force field, but it also protected your loved ones. The aesthetic component, while perhaps not the sole driver, was certainly present. What was considered beautiful varied wildly across cultures, but the desire to enhance one's appearance through modification was a constant. From the symmetrical patterns of scarification to the flowing lines of ancient tattoos, these designs were crafted with care and artistry, reflecting the unique aesthetic sensibilities of each culture. Imagine a world where the most fashionable accessory was a permanent alteration to your own body, and the trends were set by shamans and elders. The durability and permanence of body modifications were key to their protective function. Unlike temporary charms that could be lost or broken, a tattoo or scarification mark was a lifelong shield, a constant source of spiritual defense. This permanence offered a profound sense of security in a world where dangers, both seen and unseen, were constant companions. It was like having a magical amulet that you could never take off, and it was always working. So, as you drift off to sleep, imagine the ancient canvas of human skin, telling stories of identity, spirituality, and survival. The mysterious origins of body modification whisper to us from the distant past, reminding us of humanity's enduring desire to transform itself, to mark its journey, and to connect with something larger than itself. And perhaps, just perhaps, the faint echoes of those ancient needles and blades are the softest lullaby of all, a gentle hum of humanity's oldest art form. So, as you drift off to sleep, imagine the ancient body, not just adorned for beauty or status, but fortified, marked, and pierced as a living shield against the unseen forces of the world. The mysterious origins of body modification whisper to us from the distant past, reminding us of humanity's enduring need for protection, its ingenious ways of seeking solace in the face of fear, and its profound belief in the power of the body to ward off evil. And perhaps, just perhaps, the quiet hum of ancient charms and the faint echoes of protective marks are the deepest lullaby of all, a gentle murmur of humanity's oldest defenses against the dark. You've just glimpsed the ancient canvas of human skin, etched with early stories of identity and survival. Now, let's peel back another layer and delve into perhaps the most profound reason ancient peoples modified their bodies to connect with the divine, to bridge the gap between the earthly and the spiritual realms. For in a world where gods, spirits, and ancestors were ever-present forces, the body itself became a sacred instrument, a ritualistic gateway to the unseen. You've just explored how ancient societies fortified their bodies against unseen dangers, turning skin into a shield of protective marks. Now, let's shift our gaze from the individual's defense to the communal embrace, and delve into perhaps the most fundamental social reason for body modification, the powerful declaration of identity and belonging, the indelible mark of tribal affiliation. For in a world where survival often depended on the strength of your group, your body wasn't just yours, it was a living testament to your lineage, your community, and your unwavering place within the collective. Imagine yourself in a dimly lit, smoke-filled ceremonial hut, the air thick with the scent of burning herbs and damp earth. Around you, figures sway to the rhythmic beat of drums, their faces painted, their bodies adorned with intricate patterns of scarification that seem to pulse in the flickering firelight. A shaman, their face a tapestry of sacred tattoos, chants in a low, guttural voice, their eyes fixed on an unseen horizon. You feel the raw energy, the palpable sense of spiritual presence, as if the veil between worlds is thinning, and the very air crackles with unseen power. This isn't just a gathering, it's a profound spiritual undertaking, and the body, transformed and marked, is at its very heart. Imagine yourself in a vast, open landscape, perhaps a sweeping savanna under a boundless sky, or a dense, ancient forest where sunlight filters through a canopy of leaves. You encounter a group of people, their movements fluid and purposeful. As they draw closer, you notice it immediately, the intricate patterns woven into their skin, the distinctive piercings adorning their faces, the unique shaping of their features. These aren't random choices, they are a visual language, instantly communicating who these people are, which clan they belong to, and their shared history. You feel a profound sense of recognition, a quiet understanding of the deep bonds that tie these individuals together, all expressed through the living canvas of their bodies. A common historical fact is that across countless ancient cultures, body modifications served as powerful spiritual conduits. They were not merely symbols of faith, they were believed to actively facilitate communication with deities, ancestors, and nature spirits. The act of marking the body was often seen as a form of prayer, a sacrifice, or an offering, designed to gain favor, seek guidance, or invoke protection from the supernatural. It was like a very personal, very permanent hotline to the divine, but instead of dialing a number, you were getting a tattoo. A common historical fact is that body modification served as crucial markers of group identity and tribal affiliation across countless ancient cultures. In societies without written records or formal identification documents, these permanent alterations provided an immediate, undeniable visual shorthand for belonging. They allowed individuals to recognize kin, distinguish allies from strangers, and affirm their shared heritage. It was like a very permanent, very painful uniform. But instead of wearing it, you were a walking, breathing emblem of your tribe. Consider the intricate tattoos of ancient Polynesian cultures, such as the Maori of New Zealand. Their moko, elaborate facial and body tattoos, were not just decorative, they were deeply spiritual. Each line, each spiral, each pattern held profound meaning, connecting the wearer to their ancestors, their lineage, and their gods. The face, being the most sacred part of the body, was often the most heavily tattooed, transforming it into a living mask of spiritual power and ancestral connection. Imagine your face being a walking, talking family tree, but much more artistic and a lot less prone to accidental spills of coffee. Consider the intricate facial tattoos of the Maori people of New Zealand, known as moko. While also spiritual and aesthetic, the moko was fundamentally a declaration of identity. Every line, every curve, every spiral was unique to the individual, yet also incorporated patterns and motifs specific to their Iwi tribe and Hapu subtribe. A person's moko was a visual representation of their genealogy, their social standing, and their connection to their ancestral lands. To be without moko was to be without identity, to be a nobody. Imagine your face being a living, breathing family crest, but much more detailed and a lot less prone to fading in the wash. The pain endured during the tattooing or scarification process was often central to its spiritual efficacy. It was seen as a necessary sacrifice, a test of endurance that purified the individual and opened them up to spiritual insights. The shedding of blood during the process was sometimes believed to release negative energies or to create a direct link to the spirit world. This concept of pain as a pathway to spiritual awakening is a recurring theme across many ancient traditions. It was like a very intense meditation session, where the focus was less on your breathing and more on not screaming. Another powerful example comes from various indigenous groups in the Amazon rainforest, where lip plates and ear stretching are prominent. Among the Kayapo of Brazil, for instance, The size and style of a man's lip plate can indicate his age set, his status as a warrior, and his connection to the community's spiritual traditions. For women, large ear discs or lip plates can signify beauty and marital status, but also their belonging to a specific lineage within the tribe. These modifications are not just individual choices, they are deeply communal, reinforcing the bonds that tie individuals to their group. It was like a very exclusive club, where the membership badge was a very large piece of wood or clay in your lip. You've just seen how ancient societies sculpted their bodies in the relentless pursuit of beauty, reflecting diverse aesthetic ideals. Now, let's pivot from the alluring to the alarming, and delve into perhaps the most primal reason for body modification protection. For in a world teeming with unseen dangers, malevolent spirits, envious eyes, and the ever-present threat of illness, the body itself became a shield, adorned with marks and piercings believed to ward off evil and invite benevolent forces. The act of receiving these modifications was often a communal event, reinforcing the bonds of belonging. While the individual endured the pain, the community often gathered to witness the transformation, chanting, singing, and celebrating the new identity being forged. This shared experience solidified the individual's place within the group, creating a powerful sense of solidarity and mutual recognition. Imagine a very intense team-building exercise, where the bonding came from shared pain and the outcome was a permanent symbol of your loyalty. A unique detail in some ancient cultures was the belief that certain body modifications could literally open the body to spiritual entry or influence. For instance, ear stretching, common in many indigenous cultures, was sometimes believed to create a larger channel for spiritual energy or divine wisdom to enter the body. Similarly, nose piercings or lip plates were not just aesthetic choices. They could be seen as ways to enhance breath, voice, or even to prevent evil spirits from entering the body through its orifices. Imagine trying to explain to your dentist that your lip plate is actually a spiritual barrier. They'd probably just recommend flossing. A unique detail in some ancient cultures was the use of specific, secret patterns or motifs that were only understood by members of a particular tribe or clan. These hidden meanings, often embedded within larger, more visible designs, served as a subtle form of recognition, a secret handshake etched onto the skin. It allowed members to identify each other even in unfamiliar territories, reinforcing the exclusivity and intimacy of their shared identity. Imagine having a tattoo that looked like a cool design to outsiders, but to your fellow tribespeople, it was a secret code that confirmed your belonging. It was like a very ancient, very permanent form of encryption. Historians still debate the precise theological underpinnings of these practices. Were the modifications seen as literally inviting spirits into the body? Or were they more symbolic representations of an existing spiritual connection? It's an ongoing academic discussion, as the nuances of ancient spiritual beliefs can be incredibly complex and often defy simple modern interpretations. Perhaps it was a bit like trying to figure out if someone's good vibes only sign is a literal instruction or just a general sentiment. Historians still debate the precise balance between voluntary adherence to these identity markers and social coercion. While individuals undoubtedly embraced their cultural traditions, was there also a degree of pressure to conform, to bear the marks that signaled belonging in a world where being an outsider could be perilous? It's an ongoing academic discussion, as the dynamics of social conformity in ancient societies were often complex and deeply intertwined with survival. Perhaps it was a bit like choosing your favorite sports team you genuinely love them, but there's also a strong social expectation to pick a side. Body modifications also played a crucial role in ritualistic gateways and rites of passage. As individuals transitioned from childhood to adulthood, or from one social status to another, they would often undergo specific modifications that marked their new spiritual and social identity. These rituals were often accompanied by fasting, isolation, and intense spiritual preparation, culminating in the physical transformation of the body. A young person might receive their first scarification marks upon entering puberty, signifying their readiness to take on adult responsibilities and their connection to the spiritual heritage of their ancestors. It was like a very elaborate graduation ceremony, where the diploma was etched onto your skin, and the ceremony involved a lot of chanting, scarification. particularly on the face or prominent areas of the body, was another powerful means of tribal identification. Among various groups in Africa, such as the Tiv of Nigeria or the Nuba of Sudan, distinct scarification patterns were passed down through generations, serving as unmistakable tribal signatures. These marks were applied in childhood or adolescence, ensuring that by adulthood, an individual's affiliation was clear for all to see. The patterns were often so unique that a member of one tribe could instantly identify a member of another, even if they had never met before. It was like a very detailed, very painful barcode, but instead of scanning it, you just looked at someone's face. In some ancient Egyptian practices, tattoos, though less common than in other cultures, have been found on female mummies, particularly dancers and priestesses. These tattoos, often geometric patterns or images of the dwarf god, Bez, a protector of women and childbirth, are believed to have had apotropaic evil-averting or fertility-enhancing properties. They were not just adornments, they were active charms, imbued with magical power to protect and bless the wearer. Imagine getting a tattoo, not for aesthetics, but because you wanted to ward off bad luck. It certainly gives your lucky charm a whole new level of commitment. The concept of ethnic marking through body modification was crucial in multi-ethnic regions or areas with frequent intertribal contact. These visible distinctions helped prevent mistaken identity, facilitated trade and diplomacy, and clearly delineated friend from foe in times of conflict. The body became a living map of cultural boundaries, a visual guide to the complex tapestry of human groups. It was like a very permanent, very personal flag, proudly displayed on your own body. The placement of modifications on specific body parts was also highly significant. Marks on the face could signify spiritual authority or connection to ancestral spirits. As the face was often seen as the window to the soul, tattoos on the hands or arms might be related to a person's craft or their ability to create, invoking divine blessing on their work. Marks on the legs or feet could be associated with journeys, protection during travel, or connection to the earth. Every part of the body was a potential site for spiritual inscription, a testament to the holistic worldview of ancient peoples. It was like a spiritual map of your body, where every landmark had a sacred meaning. The pain endured during the creation of these identity marks also contributed to their significance. It was a shared experience that bound individuals to their group, a collective memory of the suffering endured for the sake of belonging. The marks were not just symbols, they were tangible reminders of the sacrifices made for the community, reinforcing loyalty and solidarity. Imagine going through a very painful hazing ritual, but the outcome was a lifelong bond with your fraternity, and the fraternity was your entire tribe. The use of specific pigments or materials in tattooing and piercing also held spiritual significance. Soot from sacred fires, plant extracts known for their medicinal or spiritual properties, or minerals believed to contain divine energy were often incorporated into the modification process. Bone, shell, or precious stones used in piercings were not just decorative, they were chosen for their inherent spiritual qualities, adding another layer of power to the modification. Imagine getting a piercing, not just for the bling, but because the material itself was believed to ward off evil spirits. Suddenly, that cheap earring from the mall seems a bit less magical. The loss or absence of these identity marks could be profoundly devastating. An individual who had their marks removed, or who was exiled from their tribe, might lose their sense of self and their place in the world. Conversely, while adopting the marks of another tribe could be a powerful act of alliance or assimilation, but it was also a profound rejection of one's original identity. The permanence of the modifications meant that these choices carried immense weight and irreversible consequences. It was like trying to erase your entire past, but it was etched onto your skin. Shamans and spiritual leaders often bore the most extensive and complex body modifications, reflecting their heightened connection to the spirit world. Their bodies were living libraries of sacred knowledge, their marks serving as visual representations of their spiritual journeys, their visions, and their ability to mediate between realms. These individuals were often the practitioners of body modification, guiding others through the painful but transformative process, ensuring the rituals were performed correctly and with the appropriate spiritual intent. It was like having a spiritual guru, but their wisdom was literally written all over them. The materials used in piercings or as pigments for tattoos also sometimes carried tribal significance. Specific types of wood, bone, shells, or minerals might be sourced from a tribe's ancestral lands, or obtained through specific trade routes, making the materials themselves part of the identity statement. The very substance of the modification tied the individual to their territory and their resources. Imagine your jewelry not just being pretty, but literally being made of dirt from your homeland. The act of receiving a modification could also be a form of spiritual healing, believed to cleanse the body or soul of illness or misfortune. Just as Otzi's tattoos might have been therapeutic, other modifications could have been performed to draw out sickness, to mark a recovery, or to offer protection against future ailments. The pain involved was sometimes seen as a way to burn off or cut out the bad influences, leaving the individual purified and renewed. It was like a very extreme detox, where the toxins were spiritual and the method involved a sharp object. The role of oral traditions and storytelling was often intertwined with these identity marks. The meanings of specific patterns, the stories behind their origins, and the heroic deeds associated with their acquisition were passed down through generations. This rich narrative tapestry added layers of depth and meaning to the physical marks, ensuring that their significance was understood and perpetuated within the community. It was like a very long, very detailed family saga, and the main characters were the marks on your body. The spiritual significance of body modification was not always about positive invocation. It could also be about appeasement or protection from malevolent forces. Certain marks might have been designed to ward off evil spirits, to make the wearer invisible to malevolent entities, or to serve as a form of spiritual armor. The intricate patterns could be seen as a spiritual labyrinth, confusing and deterring any harmful influences. It was like a medieval firewall, but for your soul, and it was etched onto your skin. The very act of displaying these marks was a form of communication, a constant affirmation of one's identity. In ceremonies, dances, or everyday interactions, the body became a living canvas, broadcasting a person's story and their connection to their group. These were not hidden symbols. They were meant to be seen, to be recognized, and to be understood by all. It was like a very public, very permanent social media profile, where your identity was literally written all over you. The communal aspect of these spiritual modifications was also crucial. While the individual received the mark, the ritual often involved the entire community, witnessing the transformation and reinforcing the shared spiritual beliefs. The marks became a visible testament to the collective faith, a shared language of the sacred that bound the community together. It was like a very permanent team uniform. But the team was your tribe, and the game was life itself. The enduring power of these ancient identity markers is still visible in some indigenous communities today, where traditional body modifications continue to be practiced, often as a way to preserve cultural heritage and reaffirm group identity in the face of globalization. These practices are a powerful testament to the deep human need for belonging, for a sense of place, and for a visible connection to one's roots. They remind us that our bodies are not just individual vessels, but living archives of our shared histories and collective identities. So, as you drift off to sleep, imagine the ancient body transformed, not just for beauty or identity, but as a living prayer, a sacred text, a direct line to the divine. The mysterious origins of body modification whisper to us from the distant past, reminding us of humanity's profound spiritual yearning and its willingness to reshape itself in the pursuit of connection to the unseen world. And perhaps, just perhaps, the gentle hum of ancient chants and the soft touch of sacred tools are the deepest lullaby of all, a quiet echo of humanity's oldest spiritual art. So, as you drift off to sleep, imagine the ancient body, not just adorned, but inscribed with the very essence of belonging, each mark a silent, powerful declaration of tribe and lineage. The mysterious origins of body modification whisper to us from the distant past, reminding us of humanity's enduring need for connection, its ingenious ways of forging communal bonds, and its profound belief in the power of the body to tell the story of who we are and where we belong. And perhaps, just perhaps, the quiet hum of ancient kinship and the faint echoes of tribal marks are the deepest lullaby of all, a gentle murmur of humanity's oldest declarations of self. You've explored how ancient peoples used body modifications to connect with the divine, transforming their skin into sacred texts and spiritual gateways. Now, let's shift our focus from the ethereal to the earthly and delve into another powerful, perhaps even more visible. Reason for these profound alterations: the declaration of status, power, and social hierarchy. For in many ancient societies, your body wasn't just a personal canvas, it was a living billboard, broadcasting your position, your achievements, and your authority for all to see. You've just explored how ancient societies inscribed their very essence onto their bodies, transforming skin into a powerful declaration of tribal identity and belonging. Now, as our journey through the mysterious origins of body modification continues, let's venture into perhaps the most poignant and unsettling realm of all the modifications made to the dead. Marks etched onto bodies that have already ceased to breathe, all in preparation for a journey beyond the veil, into the enigmatic afterlife. For in many ancient cultures, death was not the end of transformation, it was merely another, perhaps the most crucial stage of it. Imagine yourself in a grand ceremonial gathering, perhaps in a bustling ancient city or a remote tribal village. The air is alive with the murmur of voices, the scent of exotic spices, and the vibrant colors of elaborate clothing. As you observe the crowd, your eyes are drawn not just to their attire, but to their very bodies. Some individuals stand taller, not just in stature, but in the visual weight of their modifications. A chief might have a meticulously scarred chest, each mark representing a battle won or a challenge overcome. A priestess might bear intricate facial tattoos that denote her sacred lineage. You feel a sense of immediate understanding, a recognition of who holds influence, who commands respect, and who belongs where in the intricate web of this society, all communicated without a single spoken word. Imagine yourself in a hushed, sacred space, perhaps a dimly lit tomb chamber or a secluded mortuary hut, the air cool and still, carrying the faint scent of embalming spices and ancient dust. Before you lies a body, no longer animated by life, yet still the focus of meticulous attention. Skilled hands, perhaps those of priests or specialized artisans, are carefully at work, applying pigments, making incisions, or placing ornaments onto the deceased. This isn't about personal vanity or social status in the earthly realm. It's about ensuring a safe passage, a dignified reception, and a powerful identity in the world beyond. You feel a profound sense of reverence, a quiet acknowledgement of humanity's enduring hope for what lies after, and its willingness to prepare the dead for that ultimate journey. A common historical fact is that body modifications, in countless ancient cultures, served as powerful visual markers of social hierarchy and individual status. Unlike fleeting garments or temporary adornments, these permanent alterations to the body were undeniable declarations of a person's rank, wealth, lineage, and achievements. They were earned, often through arduous rites or significant life events. And once acquired, they became an integral part of one's identity, visible to everyone in the community. It was like a very permanent, very painful resume, but instead of listing your job experience, it showed your entire life story and social standing. A common historical fact is that post-mortem body modifications, though less widely recognized than those on the living, were practiced in various ancient cultures with profound spiritual significance. These alterations were not about preserving the body for its own sake, but about preparing the deceased for their journey into the afterlife, ensuring they were recognized by ancestors, protected from malevolent spirits, or adorned appropriately for their eternal existence. Death was merely a transition, and the body, even in its stillness, was still a vital part of that passage. It was like packing a very special, very permanent suitcase. But the clothes were tattoos, and the destination was the great unknown. Consider the ancient Maya, known for their elaborate architectural achievements and sophisticated calendrical systems. Among the elite, cranial deformation was a common practice. Infants' heads would be bound with boards or cloths for prolonged periods, gently reshaping the skull into an elongated or flattened form. This was not a random act. It was a deliberate aesthetic choice, believed to enhance beauty and, more importantly, to signify high social status and intellectual prowess. Imagine being able to tell someone's social class just by the shape of their head. It was like a medieval version of a designer handbag, but for your skull, Consider the elaborate mummification practices of ancient Egypt. While the primary goal was preservation, the wrapping of the mummy itself often involved intricate layering of bandages, sometimes with painted designs or amulets placed between the layers. These weren't just for structural integrity, they were protective spells, spiritual maps, and symbolic adornments designed to guide the deceased through the underworld and ensure their rebirth in the afterlife. The body, once wrapped, became a living sculpture of spiritual intent, its surface inscribed with prayers and protective imagery. Imagine being wrapped up like a very precious gift, but the gift was your eternal soul, and the wrapping paper was covered in hieroglyphs. It certainly gives a new meaning to gift wrapping, doesn't it? Another striking example comes from various African cultures, where scarification reached incredible levels of artistry and complexity. Among groups like the Karo of Ethiopia or the Dinka of Sudan, intricate patterns of raised scars on the face, chest, and back were not just beautiful, they were a visual language. Specific patterns could denote tribal affiliation, age group, marital status, or even personal achievements like hunting prowess or success in battle. The more extensive and elaborate the scarification, the higher the individual's status and prestige within the community. It was like a very detailed personal history book, but written directly onto your skin. In some cultures, post-mortem tattooing was practiced. While evidence is rarer due to the perishable nature of skin, archaeological findings suggest that in certain ancient societies, individuals who died without specific tattoos or marks might have them applied after death. This could be to ensure they were recognized by their ancestors in the spirit world, to complete a spiritual journey that was cut short, or to grant them the necessary protective symbols for their afterlife passage. It was a posthumous passport, ensuring safe entry into the realm of the dead. Imagine getting your first tattoo. Not when you're 18, but after you're, well, no longer with us. Talk about commitment. The pain endured during these status-affirming modifications was often a crucial component of their significance. It was a test of courage, resilience, and commitment, proving one's worthiness for a higher social standing. Only those who could withstand the agony were deemed fit to bear the marks of leadership or elite status. This shared experience of pain forged bonds within the elite, creating a visual shorthand for shared endurance and privilege. Imagine a very exclusive club, where the initiation ritual involved a lot of sharp objects and a very high pain tolerance. A unique detail in some ancient cultures was the practice of painting the bones of the deceased after the flesh had decomposed, or even painting the mummified remains. Among certain indigenous groups in the Andes, for instance, bundles of bones would be exhumed, cleaned, and then painted with red ochre or other pigments, sometimes in geometric patterns or symbolic designs. This was part of a ritual of ancestor veneration, a way to reanimate the deceased's presence and ensure their continued connection to the living. It was like giving your ancestors a fresh coat of paint, but the canvas was their bones, and the paint was a sacred pigment. A unique detail in some ancient cultures was the use of specific, rare materials and piercings or adornments that were reserved exclusively for the elite. For example, jade ear spools in Mesoamerica, or gold lip plugs in certain South American cultures, were not just valuable. Their use was often restricted by sumptuary laws or social custom to only the highest-ranking individuals. The material itself became a symbol of power and wealth, making the modification a double declaration of status. Imagine having a piercing, not just because it looked cool, but because the material itself was so rare and expensive that only royalty could afford it. Suddenly, your diamond stud seems a bit less exclusive. Historians still debate the precise theological motivations behind all forms of post-mortem modification. Was it primarily about ensuring the deceased's identity in the afterlife? About protecting them from spiritual dangers? Or about a symbolic continuation of their earthly status? It's an ongoing academic discussion, as the beliefs surrounding death and the afterlife are incredibly diverse and often defy simple categorization. Perhaps it was a bit like trying to figure out if someone's gravestone is for remembrance, for spiritual peace, or just to make sure they don't get lost. Historians still debate the precise interplay between inherited status and achieved status as reflected in body modifications. Did these marks primarily confirm a person's birthright, or did they also serve as a means for individuals to earn and display their personal accomplishments, thereby elevating their standing? It's an ongoing academic discussion, as the dynamics of social mobility in ancient societies were often complex and varied. Perhaps it was a bit like a modern military uniform. Some badges are for rank, and some are for valor. But both tell a story. The placement of specific ornaments or grave goods on or in the body of the deceased also falls under the umbrella of post-mortem modification. While not altering the body itself, the careful placement of jewelry, amulets, or symbolic objects within the burial shroud or coffin was a deliberate act of preparing the deceased for their journey. These items were believed to offer protection, to provide sustenance, or to signify status in the afterlife. Imagine packing your favorite necklace for a trip, but the trip is eternal, and the necklace is meant to ward off underworld demons. Dental modification was another fascinating way to display status. In various ancient cultures, from the Maya to certain groups in Southeast Asia, teeth were filed into points, notched, or even inlaid with precious stones like jade or gold. This was a painful and permanent alteration, often performed on adolescents or young adults, and was typically reserved for the elite or those undergoing significant rites of passage. The dazzling smile of a person with inlaid jade teeth would immediately signal their wealth and importance. It was like a medieval grill, but much more permanent and a lot more painful to get. The practice of foot binding in Imperial China, while emerging much later than many other ancient modifications around the 10th century CE, serves as a stark example of body modification for status and aesthetic ideals within a strict social hierarchy. Though not as ancient as some other practices discussed, it highlights how extreme alterations could become symbols of beauty, wealth, and marriageability, particularly for elite women, signifying their delicate nature and their exemption from manual labor. It was a very restrictive form of high fashion, where the shoes were literally built into your feet. The role of sumptuary laws, or unwritten social rules, also played a part in defining who could bear certain marks. In many societies, specific types of tattoos, scarification patterns, or even the size of earlobe stretching were reserved for chiefs, warriors, shamans, or members of royal families. To adopt such a mark without the proper authority or achievement would be a grave transgression, potentially leading to severe punishment or ostracism. It was like trying to wear a general's uniform when you're just a private. Definitely not a good idea. The practice of excarnation, where the flesh was removed from the bones either through natural decomposition or deliberate means before burial or reburial, was also a form of post-mortem manipulation. Once the bones were clean, they might be painted, bundled, or placed in ossuaries. This was particularly common in cultures that believed in the spiritual significance of bones as the enduring essence of an individual, or as a way to facilitate the soul's release from the decaying flesh. It was a very practical, very spiritual way of dealing with the body, ensuring that only the essential elements remained for the journey. The visibility of these modifications was key to their function as status markers. Unlike hidden tattoos, many of these alterations were on the face, hands, or other exposed parts of the body, ensuring they were immediately apparent to anyone interacting with the individual. This constant visual reinforcement helped maintain social order and communicate power dynamics without the need for constant verbal declarations. It was like a very efficient, very visual social media profile, but it was your actual face. The tools used for these post-mortem modifications, whether for embalming, tattooing, or painting, were often sacred implements, handled with reverence by ritual specialists. The process was not a casual one. It was a profound ceremony, a final act of care and spiritual preparation for the deceased. The air would be filled with chants, prayers, and the solemn movements of those performing the rites, ensuring that every mark and every placement was done with the correct spiritual intent. Imagine a funeral director who also performs ancient rituals and uses sacred tools. Suddenly, your local funeral home seems a bit less mundane. The act of receiving these elite embellishments was often a public ceremony, witnessed by the community. This public display reinforced the individual's new status and solidified their position within the social structure. It was not just about the mark itself, but the ritual surrounding its acquisition, which served to legitimize and celebrate the transformation. Imagine a grand unveiling, but instead of a new statue, it was a newly modified chief. The concept of the soul journey was central to many of these practices. It was believed that the deceased's soul embarked on a perilous journey through the underworld or spirit realm, encountering challenges and obstacles. The modifications applied to the body were intended to aid the soul on this journey, providing protection, guidance, or recognition from the spirits and deities encountered along the way. The body, even in death, was still seen as intrinsically linked to the soul's fate. It was like a very intense spiritual obstacle course, and your body modifications were your cheat codes. The legacy of these status-driven modifications often extended beyond the individual. In some cultures, specific patterns or designs were hereditary, passed down through generations within elite families, reinforcing their lineage and their claim to authority. The body became a living archive of ancestral power, a testament to a family's enduring influence. It was like a very exclusive family crest, but it was etched onto your skin and passed down through the generations. The practice of creating death masks, while also serving to preserve the likeness of the deceased, could be considered a form of post-mortem modification, particularly when these masks were incorporated directly onto the mummy or body. These masks, often made of gold, plaster, or other materials, were not just portraits. They were believed to provide a new, idealized face for the deceased in the afterlife, ensuring their recognition by the gods and their successful transition to eternal life. It was like a very permanent, very elaborate selfie filter. But for the afterlife, the very act of enduring the pain of these modifications also contributed to the perception of power. In many ancient societies, the ability to withstand extreme pain was seen as a sign of strength, discipline, and spiritual fortitude, qualities essential for leaders and those in positions of authority. The marks themselves were a testament to this endurance, a visible badge of resilience. It was like a very intense job interview, where the main qualification was how much pain you could take without flinching. The materials used for post-mortem modifications also held symbolic weight. Gold, for instance, in ancient Egypt, was associated with divinity and immortality, making golden masks or adornments particularly potent for the deceased. Red ochre, used to paint bones in some cultures, often symbolized life, rebirth, or the blood of ancestors, imbuing the remains with powerful spiritual energy. These materials were not chosen at random. They were selected for their profound cultural and spiritual significance. Imagine choosing your funeral attire based on its magical properties, not just its style. So, as you drift off to sleep, imagine the ancient body as a living tapestry of power and prestige. Each mark, each alteration, a silent declaration of status and authority. The mysterious origins of body modification whisper to us from the distant past, reminding us how deeply intertwined our physical forms have always been with our social identities, and how even in the most ancient times, the body was used to broadcast who we were and where we stood in the grand theater of human society. And perhaps, just perhaps, the quiet hum of ancient power, etched onto skin and bone, is the deepest lullaby of all, a gentle echo of humanity's oldest social statements. The rituals surrounding post-mortem modification were often performed in secret, away from the gaze of the wider community, by a select group of initiated individuals. This exclusivity added to the mystique and power of the practices, emphasizing their sacred nature and the specialized knowledge required to perform them correctly. It was like a very exclusive, very solemn backstage pass to the afterlife. You've just seen how ancient societies used body modifications to broadcast status and power, turning the human form into a living declaration of hierarchy. Now, let's delve into perhaps the most visceral and profound reason for these alterations: the deliberate embrace of pain as a transformative force, a necessary passage through which individuals were initiated into new stages of life, new identities, and new understandings of themselves and their world. For countless ancient cultures, the body was not merely adorned, it was tested, pushed to its limits, and reshaped through suffering, all in the name of growth and belonging. The ultimate goal of these post-mortem marks was to ensure the deceased achieved a state of eternal peace, prosperity, or rebirth in the afterlife. Whether it was to join the ancestors, to become one with the gods, or to simply find a pleasant resting place, the modifications were a testament to the living's profound desire for the well-being of their departed loved ones. It was a final act of love and devotion, a silent prayer etched onto the very body of the deceased, Imagine yourself on the cusp of adulthood in a remote, ancient village, perhaps deep within a rainforest or on a vast, sun-baked savanna. The air is thick with anticipation, the scent of wood smoke and damp earth mingling with the nervous energy of your peers. You've prepared for this day your entire life, listening to the elders' stories, observing the marked bodies of those who came before you. Now it's your turn. You stand before the community, your heart thumping a frantic rhythm against your ribs, knowing that what comes next will redefine who you are. The tools are simple: a sharpened bone, a heated stick, a handful of pigment, but the pain they promise is immense. A gateway to a new existence. You feel the weight of tradition, the collective gaze of your ancestors, and the profound, terrifying certainty that you are about to be reborn. So, as you drift off to sleep, imagine the ancient body, even in its stillness, undergoing a final transformation, marked and adorned for a journey beyond our comprehension. The mysterious origins of body modification whisper to us from the distant past, reminding us of humanity's enduring hope for what lies after death, its ingenious ways of preparing for the ultimate transition, and its profound belief in the power of the body to carry meaning, even into eternity. And perhaps, just perhaps, the quiet hum of ancient rituals and the faint echoes of posthumous marks are the deepest lullaby of all, a gentle murmur of humanity's oldest farewells. A common historical fact is that initiation rites, often involving significant body modification and the endurance of extreme pain, were a widespread and fundamental aspect of ancient societies. These rituals marked crucial transitions in an individual's life, such as the passage from childhood to adulthood, from singlehood to marriage, or from a layperson to a spiritual leader or warrior. The pain was not incidental. It was central to the process, believed to purify, strengthen, and transform the initiate, preparing them for the responsibilities and challenges of their new role. It was like a very intense, very permanent graduation ceremony, where the diploma was etched onto your skin, and the final exam was a test of your pain tolerance. You've just ventured into the poignant realm of post-mortem body modifications, where, even in death, the body was prepared for a journey beyond. Now, let's shift our focus from the why to the how, and delve into the sheer ingenuity, and often brutal simplicity, of the tools and techniques ancient peoples employed to transform their bodies. For without modern anesthesia, sterile needles, or electric tattoo machines, these ancient artisans crafted permanent marks with a skill that borders on the miraculous, a testament to human determination and the profound significance of their art. The philosophy behind this embrace of pain was multifaceted. It was often seen as a test of courage and resilience, proving an individual's readiness to face the hardships of adult life or the dangers of warfare. Enduring the agony without flinching demonstrated inner strength and discipline, qualities highly valued in communal survival. The marks left by the modification were not just symbols of the rite. They were tangible proof of the initiate's fortitude, a visible badge of honor earned through suffering. Imagine a medieval job interview where your resume was literally written on your body, and the main skill required was can withstand extreme discomfort. Imagine yourself in a small, sun-dappled clearing, the air warm and humid, perhaps in a Polynesian village or an Amazonian settlement. Before you, a skilled practitioner, their own body a testament to their craft, prepares their tools. There's no gleaming stainless steel, no buzzing machinery. Instead, you see a collection of sharpened bones, perhaps from a bird or a fish, a bundle of thorns from a local plant, a piece of obsidian flaked to a razor edge, or a small, intricately carved wooden mallet. The pigments are natural soot from a sacred fire, crushed minerals, vibrant plant extracts. You feel a mix of fascination and a distinct wince, contemplating the raw, unyielding nature of these instruments and the pain they are about to inflict. This isn't just a craft, it's a delicate, dangerous dance between human will and the limits of the body. Consider the scarification rituals of various West African cultures, such as the Badi or Surma of Ethiopia, or the Yoruba of Nigeria. Young men and women would undergo elaborate scarification patterns on their faces, chests, and backs as part of their initiation into adulthood. These painful procedures, often performed by skilled elders or ritual specialists, created raised, keloid scars that were considered aesthetically beautiful and deeply meaningful. Each mark could represent a lesson learned, a challenge overcome, or a spiritual blessing received during the initiation period. It was like a very detailed, very painful journal entry. But instead of writing it down, you were carving it into your skin. A common historical fact is that ancient body modification techniques, while lacking modern technology, were remarkably effective and diverse, adapted to the available natural resources and cultural practices. The fundamental principle of tattooing remained consistent, introducing pigment into the dermis layer of the skin. However, the methods varied wildly. One of the most widespread techniques was hand tapping. This involved using a small mallet to tap a sharp implement like a bone comb, a thorn, or a sharpened piece of bamboo repeatedly into the skin, creating punctures into which pigment was then rubbed. Imagine getting a tattoo, not with a buzzing machine, but with a tiny hammer and chisel. It certainly gives a new meaning to getting hammered, doesn't it? A unique detail about some initiation rites involving scarification was the use of specific plant materials or ashes rubbed into the freshly cut wounds to enhance the colloiding process, ensuring the scars stood out vividly. This deliberate manipulation of the body's healing response highlights the sophisticated understanding ancient peoples had of their own physiology. Even without modern medical knowledge, they weren't just cutting, they were actively shaping the outcome of the wound, turning injury into art. Imagine using a special cream to make your tattoo more raised and bumpy. It certainly flips our modern aesthetic on its head, doesn't it? Another common tattooing method was stick and poke, or hand poking. Here, a single needle-like implement, a sharpened bone, a thorn, or a piece of wood would be used to manually puncture the skin, dot by dot, with pigment applied to the tip or rubbed into the fresh wounds. This method allowed for incredible precision and intricate detail, albeit at a much slower pace than modern techniques. Think of it as a very slow, very deliberate form of pointillism, but on your skin, and with a lot more bleeding. Historians still debate the precise psychological and sociological impacts of these painful initiation rites. Did they primarily serve to instill discipline and conformity within the group? Or did they also foster a profound sense of individual transformation and spiritual awakening? It's an ongoing academic discussion, as the experience of pain, particularly in a ritualistic context, can have deeply personal and communal effects that are difficult to fully reconstruct. Perhaps it was a bit like a very intense team-building exercise, where the bonding came from shared agony and the outcome was a new, tougher version of yourself. For scarification, the techniques were even more direct and often more overtly painful. Cutting involved using sharp blades, flint, obsidian, shell, or later white metal to incise the skin, creating open wounds that would heal into raised scars. The depth and shape of the cuts were meticulously controlled to achieve specific patterns. Burning involved applying heated objects, such as sticks or metal rods, to the skin to create raised burns. And packing involved rubbing irritants, like plant ashes, charcoal, or clay, into fresh wounds to promote keloid formation, ensuring the scars stood out prominently. Imagine getting a design on your body by essentially burning or cutting yourself, and then rubbing dirt into it. Suddenly, now that laser tattoo removal doesn't seem so bad after all. Circumcision, a common practice across many ancient cultures, including ancient Egypt, various African tribes, and later Judaism, also often served as a significant initiation rite. While varying in its specific form and age of performance, it marked a boy's transition into manhood, signifying his readiness for marriage, fatherhood, and participation in communal life. The pain involved was a test of courage, and the physical alteration a permanent sign of his new status and commitment to the community's traditions. It was a very intimate, very permanent form of membership card. A unique detail in some ancient cultures was the use of specific, often highly toxic, plant materials not just for pigment, but also for their purported antiseptic or analgesic properties during the modification process. While rudimentary, this shows an understanding of the need to manage infection and pain, even if their methods were not always effective by modern standards. Some plants might have been chewed or applied topically to numb the area, or their extracts used to clean the tools. Imagine a medieval tattoo artist offering you a leaf to chew on instead of a painkiller. It certainly makes you appreciate modern medicine, doesn't it? In some Amazonian tribes, such as the Satera Mawe, Initiation rites involved young men placing their hands into gloves woven with hundreds of bullet ants, enduring excruciating stings for minutes. While not a permanent body modification in the sense of tattooing or scarification, the intense, ritualized pain was central to the passage, proving their endurance and readiness for manhood. The temporary swelling and pain left a profound, albeit non-permanent, mark on their bodies and minds. It's like a very extreme version of a trust fall, but instead of falling, you're getting stung by 1,000 tiny, angry insects. Historians still debate the precise level of anatomical knowledge possessed by ancient body modification practitioners. While they clearly understood how to create permanent marks and manipulate the healing process, was this knowledge gained purely through trial and error? Or did some cultures develop a more systematic understanding of skin layers, blood flow, and infection prevention? It's an ongoing academic discussion, as the evidence is often indirect and open to interpretation. Perhaps it was a bit like ancient chefs. They knew how to make delicious food, even if they didn't understand the chemistry of cooking. The concept of dying to be reborn was often central to these painful initiation rites. The pain, the blood, the physical transformation were symbolic of a death of the old self, the child, the uninitiated, and a rebirth into a new, stronger, more capable identity. The marks on the body were not just scars, they were birthmarks of this new self, a testament to the journey through suffering and emergence into a new phase of life. Imagine going through a literal rebirth, but the labor pains were caused by a sharp object, and the baby was a tougher, wiser you. The pigments used were entirely natural, sourced from the environment. Black was often derived from soot from burnt wood, bone, or resin or charcoal. Red came from ochre or plant extracts. Blue and green could be obtained from copper compounds or specific plants. These pigments were ground into fine powders and mixed with a liquid binder, such as water, plant sap, or even breast milk, to create a workable ink. The vibrant colors we see in ancient art were often replicated on the skin, a testament to the richness of their natural palette. Imagine making your own tattoo ink from scratch, using whatever you found in your backyard. Talk about organic. The communal aspect of these rites was also crucial. While the initiate endured the pain individually, the community often gathered to witness the transformation, offering support, chanting, and celebrating the successful completion of the rite. The marks on the body became a shared language, understood by all, reinforcing the bonds within the group and acknowledging the individual's new place in the social fabric. It was like a very public performance art piece, where the artist was the initiate, and the medium was their own body. Dental modification involved a different set of tools. For filing teeth, abrasive stones, sometimes combined with water or sand, were used to carefully reshape the enamel. For inlays, small holes would be drilled into the teeth using specialized drills, often made of stone or bone, sometimes with a rotating action. The precious stones or metals would then be carefully fitted and cemented into place using natural resins. This was a slow, meticulous, and undoubtedly painful process, requiring immense skill and steady hands. Imagine your dentist using a rock and a stick to drill into your teeth. Suddenly, that dental drill doesn't seem so loud. The spiritual dimension of pain and initiation was also significant. In many traditions, enduring pain was believed to open channels to the spirit world, allowing for visions, spiritual insights, or a deeper connection with ancestral powers. The altered state of consciousness induced by extreme discomfort could be seen as a pathway to divine knowledge or a purification of the soul. It was like a very intense spiritual retreat, where the enlightenment came through agony. The preparation of the skin was also crucial. Before tattooing or scarification, the area might be cleaned, perhaps with water or herbal infusions. The design would often be drawn onto the skin first, using charcoal or a plant-based dye, serving as a guide for the practitioner. This meticulous planning ensured accuracy and symmetry in the final design, even with rudimentary tools. It was like a medieval blueprint, but the blueprint was drawn on your body, and the construction was very, very personal. The tools used for these painful transformations were often imbued with ritual significance. The sharpened bone, the obsidian blade, the heated stick. These were not just implements, they were sacred instruments, handled by ritual specialists with reverence and precision. The process was often accompanied by specific chants, prayers, or songs, creating a sacred atmosphere that elevated the physical act into a profound spiritual experience. Imagine a tattoo artist who also performs an ancient ritual and sings sacred songs while working. Suddenly, your local tattoo parlor seems a bit less mystical. The pain management, or lack thereof, during these procedures is a stark reminder of the resilience of ancient peoples. While some cultures might have used mild sedatives from plants, or employed ritualistic chanting to help the initiate enter an altered state. True anesthesia was non-existent. The endurance of pain was often seen as a virtue, a necessary component of the transformation. The marks themselves were a testament to the pain endured, a visible badge of courage and commitment. Imagine getting a full back tattoo and your only pain relief is a strong will and perhaps a really good storyteller. In ancient Peru, particularly among cultures like the Paracas and Nazca, elaborate textile-wrapped mummies have been discovered. These mummy bundles were not just simple burials, they were intricate works of art and spiritual preparation. The bodies were carefully positioned, often adorned with textiles, feathers, and sometimes even false heads or masks, creating a powerful effigy of the deceased. These bundles were then often placed in communal tombs, signifying the deceased's continued presence within their lineage group, even after death. It was like a very elaborate, very permanent sleeping bag. But the sleeping bag was also a work of art, and it was for your ancestors. The practitioners of these arts were highly respected individuals within their communities. They were not just artists, they were often spiritual leaders, healers, or elders who possessed specialized knowledge of anatomy, ritual, and the spiritual significance of the marks. Their skills were honed over years of apprenticeship, passed down through generations, making them invaluable members of their societies. It was like a medieval master craftsman, but instead of building cathedrals, they were building identities on human skin. The legacy of these painful passages is still visible in some indigenous cultures today, where traditional initiation rites continue to be practiced, albeit sometimes adapted to modern contexts. These enduring traditions are a powerful testament to the deep cultural significance of pain as a transformative force, a necessary step in the journey of self-discovery and communal belonging. They remind us that the human spirit, throughout history, has been willing to endure immense suffering for the sake of identity, status, and spiritual growth. The risk of infection was, of course, very high. Without sterile environments or antibiotics, even a minor skin puncture could lead to serious, life-threatening infections. Yet, the prevalence of these practices suggests that ancient peoples had developed some rudimentary methods to minimize risk, perhaps through the use of fire to sterilize tools, or the application of natural antiseptics. The survival of Ötzi, the Iceman with his tattoos, despite his ancient context, suggests a degree of success in managing these risks. It was a very high-stakes game of chance, where the prize was a cool tattoo, and the penalty was a potentially fatal infection. The marks left by these rites were permanent, a constant reminder of the journey endured and the new identity forged. They were not something to be hidden. They were to be displayed with pride, a visual narrative of a life lived and challenges overcome. For the individual, they were a source of strength and confidence, a testament to their resilience. For the community, they were a living history, a continuous reaffirmation of their shared values and traditions. The longevity and permanence of these modifications, despite the simple tools, is truly remarkable. The pigments used in ancient tattoos have endured for thousands of years on mummified remains, a testament to the quality of the inks and the skill of the artists. The raised scars of scarification, once healed, are permanent, enduring declarations of identity and transformation. These were not temporary fashion statements. They were lifelong commitments, etched into the very fabric of one's being. So, as you drift off to sleep, imagine the ancient body, not just adorned, but tested, transformed, and reborn through the crucible of pain. The mysterious origins of body modification whisper to us from the distant past, reminding us of humanity's profound understanding of suffering as a pathway to growth, a necessary passage into new realms of self and society. And perhaps, just perhaps, the quiet hum of ancient drums and the faint echoes of endured agony are the deepest lullaby of all, a gentle murmur of humanity's oldest tests of strength and spirit. The sounds of these ancient modifications would have been distinct. The rhythmic tapping of the mallet, the scraping of a sharp blade, the quiet grunts of endurance from the initiate. These sounds, combined with the chants and prayers of the ritual, would have created a multi-sensory experience, deeply embedding the memory of the transformation into the individual's psyche. It was a very personal symphony, played out on the canvas of the body. You've explored how ancient societies embraced pain as a transformative force, marking pivotal life passages through arduous initiation rites. Now, let's gently shift our focus from the raw intensity of ritual to the subtle, yet equally powerful, impulse that has driven body modification across millennia, the pursuit of beauty. For in every culture, across every epoch, humans have sought to enhance, adorn, and reshape their forms to align with deeply ingrained aesthetic ideals, turning the body into a living sculpture that reflects what it means to be beautiful. So, as you drift off to sleep, imagine the ancient hands, guided by ingenuity and purpose, wielding simple tools to create profound transformations on the human body. The mysterious origins of body modification whisper to us from the distant past, reminding us of humanity's incredible resourcefulness, its willingness to endure for meaning, and its enduring capacity to turn the raw materials of nature into expressions of art, identity, and spirit. And perhaps, just perhaps, the quiet hum of ancient tools and the faint echoes of deliberate pain are the deepest lullaby of all. A gentle murmur of humanity's oldest artistry. Imagine yourself in a vibrant, ancient marketplace, perhaps in the heart of a thriving civilization along a great river, or nestled within a secluded valley. The air is filled with the chatter of commerce, the aroma of exotic spices, and the glint of sunlight on polished metals and woven fabrics. As you observe the people moving through the crowd, your eyes are drawn to the incredible diversity of their appearances. A woman might have her neck adorned with gleaming rings, elongating it to an astonishing degree. A man might have his lips stretched by a large, ornate plate, or his earlobes distended by heavy, decorative weights. These aren't just random acts of adornment. They are deliberate, often lifelong transformations, each one a testament to a deeply held cultural vision of what constitutes beauty, attractiveness, and desirability. You feel a sense of wonder, a quiet appreciation for the sheer ingenuity and dedication with which humanity has sculpted itself in the name of aesthetic perfection. You've just explored the ingenious, often brutal, tools and techniques ancient peoples employed to transform their bodies, a testament to human determination and the profound significance of their art. Now, as our extensive journey through the mysterious origins of body modification draws to its gentle close, let's reflect on how these seemingly distant, sometimes unsettling, ancient practices still subtly echo in our modern world, shaping the very trends we see today. Even if we don't always realize their deep historical roots, the past isn't just a dusty museum exhibit. It's a quiet hum beneath the surface of contemporary culture, a faint whisper in the choices we make about our own bodies. A common historical fact is that the concept of beauty is profoundly culturally relative, and what one society considers aesthetically pleasing, another might find unusual or even grotesque. Body modifications, therefore, are not just expressions of individual taste. They are powerful reflections of a culture's collective aesthetic ideals. From the earliest tattoos to the most extreme forms of reshaping, these alterations were undertaken to enhance attractiveness, signal eligibility for marriage, or simply to conform to the prevailing standards of beauty within a given community. It was like a very permanent, very painful beauty pageant, where the judges were your entire society, and the prize was social acceptance and perhaps a good spouse. Imagine yourself in a bustling city street today. You see people everywhere, a kaleidoscope of styles and expressions. A young person walks by with a sleeve of intricate tattoos, perhaps a vibrant floral design or a geometric pattern. Another has multiple piercings adorning their ears, nose, or even their face. Someone else might have subtly stretched earlobes, or a unique dental modification that catches your eye. These aren't just fleeting fashions, they are part of a global phenomenon, a resurgence of body modification that, while seemingly modern, carries the indelible imprints of ancient human impulses. You feel a sense of continuity, a quiet recognition that the desires to mark, adorn, and transform the body are as old as humanity itself, merely expressed with new tools and in new contexts. Consider the practice of neck elongation, famously associated with the Kayan people often mistakenly called long neck women of Myanmar and Thailand, but also found in other cultures. From a young age, girls would begin wearing brass coils around their necks, with more coils added over time. These coils don't actually stretch the vertebrae. Instead, they push down the clavicle and ribs, creating the illusion of an elongated neck. This practice was, and in some communities still is, seen as a mark of beauty, elegance, and high status, with longer necks considered more attractive. Imagine trying to sleep with a dozen brass rings around your neck, all in the name of looking good. It certainly gives a new meaning to beauty sleep, doesn't it? A common historical fact is that body modification, particularly tattooing and piercing, has experienced a massive resurgence in popularity in Western cultures over the last few decades, moving from niche subcultures to mainstream acceptance. What was once considered rebellious or marginal is now widely embraced, seen as a form of personal expression, artistic statement, or even a rite of passage. This widespread adoption, however, isn't a completely new invention. It's a reawakening of practices that have been fundamental to human identity for tens of thousands of years. It's like we collectively remembered an ancient, deeply ingrained habit, but now we have much better needles and a lot more hygiene. Another striking example of aesthetic-driven modification is the use of lip plates or librets, found in various African cultures such as the Mursi and Surma of Ethiopia, and historically among indigenous peoples in parts of the Americas. Young women would have their lower lip pierced and gradually stretched by inserting increasingly larger clay or wooden plates. The size of the lip plate was often directly correlated with the woman's beauty, social status, and even her dowry. A larger plate signified greater wealth and desirability. Imagine trying to eat a sandwich with a plate the size of a dinner saucer in your lip. It definitely makes you appreciate modern orthodontics. Consider tattooing. From Utsi the Iceman's therapeutic dots to the elaborate moko of the Maori, tattoos have always been about more than just ink on skin. Today, while many get tattoos for purely aesthetic reasons or to commemorate personal events, the underlying drives often echo ancient motivations. People seek tattoos to express their identity, to mark significant life transitions like a first job or a child's birth, to connect with a community, a shared symbol among friends, or even for spiritual reasons, a protective symbol or a reminder of faith. It's like we're still trying to write our life stories on our skin. But now the stories are about our favorite band or a beloved pet, instead of a successful hunt or a spiritual vision. Though I suppose a tattoo of a fierce dragon could still be seen as a protective symbol, right? A unique detail in some cultures practicing dental modification for aesthetic reasons was the use of specific, often rare tools and techniques to achieve perfectly symmetrical or intricate designs. For instance, among the ancient Maya, the filing of teeth into points or notches was done with incredible precision, sometimes involving a skilled artisan who would use abrasive stones and water. The aim was not just to alter the teeth, but to create a harmonious, visually appealing pattern that complemented facial features. This wasn't just about making your teeth pointy, it was about making them artfully pointy, like a very permanent, very painful form of dental sculpture. Piercings, too, have seen a similar trajectory. While ancient ear stretching or lip plates might have signified status, spiritual connection, or tribal affiliation, modern piercings, from simple ear studs to more elaborate facial or body piercings, still carry echoes of these roles. They can be aesthetic choices, certainly, but they also serve as declarations of identity, expressions of individuality, or even subtle acts of rebellion against conventional norms. The pain endured, while minimized by modern techniques, still offers a small, personal rite of passage, a moment of commitment to a chosen aesthetic or identity. It's like we've taken the ancient ritual of piercing and turned it into a very fashionable, slightly less painful form of self-expression. You might not be piercing your nose to ward off evil spirits, but you definitely want it to look good for your Instagram selfie. Historians still debate the precise origins of many of these extreme aesthetic modifications. Were they initially rooted in spiritual beliefs that later evolved into purely aesthetic practices? Or did they emerge from a desire for distinctiveness and group identity that then became associated with beauty? It's an ongoing academic discussion, as the lines between ritual, status, and aesthetics are often blurred and intertwined in ancient cultures. Perhaps it was a bit like trying to figure out if someone got a piercing because it looked cool, had a deeper meaning, or they just wanted to fit in with their friends. A unique detail in the modern resurgence of body modification is the concept of cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. As ancient designs, symbols, and techniques from indigenous cultures become more accessible through globalization and the internet, there's a growing debate about whether adopting these motifs for purely aesthetic reasons, without understanding their deep cultural and spiritual context, is respectful or exploitative. This discussion highlights the enduring power and meaning embedded in these ancient marks, even when removed from their original environment. It's like trying to wear a sacred tribal mask as a Halloween costume. It might look cool, but you're probably missing the entire point. Ear stretching, practiced by numerous cultures worldwide, from the Maasai of East Africa to the ancient Egyptians and various indigenous groups in the Americas, also served significant aesthetic purposes. Large, stretched earlobes, often adorned with elaborate plugs or weights made of wood, bone, stone, or precious metals, were considered a mark of beauty, wisdom, and social standing. The size and ornamentation of the stretched lobes could indicate age, marital status, or even a person's achievements. Imagine having earlobes so large you could hang your keys from them, all in the name of looking fashionable. It certainly makes your tiny modern ear studs seem a bit understated. Historians and anthropologists still debate whether the modern body modification movement is a genuine revival of ancient traditions, a subconscious tapping into primal human impulses, or simply a new phenomenon that coincidentally shares some superficial similarities with historical practices. Is it a continuous thread woven through human history, or a series of disconnected, convergent developments? It's an ongoing academic discussion, as the motivations behind human behavior are rarely simple and often layered with multiple influences. Perhaps it's a bit like how we still love stories the medium changes, but the desire for narrative remains. Tattooing, beyond its spiritual and identity-marking roles, was also widely used for purely aesthetic enhancement. The intricate patterns of Polynesian tattoos, the delicate lines of ancient Egyptian body art, or the bold designs of Pictish warriors were all crafted with an eye towards visual appeal. These designs could highlight musculature, accentuate curves, or simply create a visually stunning tapestry on the skin. The body became a living canvas, decorated with permanent art that reflected the cultural understanding of beauty. It was like a very personal, very permanent art gallery, where the artwork was your own skin. Scarification, while far less common than tattooing or piercing in mainstream Western culture, still exists as a form of extreme body modification. For those who choose it today, the motivations often mirror ancient ones: a desire for unique identity, a test of endurance and pain tolerance, a connection to a subculture, or even a form of personal ritual. The deliberate creation of raised scars, often through cutting or branding, continues to be a profound and permanent statement, echoing the ancient practices where pain was a pathway to transformation. Imagine telling your friends you got a new design, and it's not a tattoo, but a series of carefully crafted scars. Definitely a conversation starter. The concept of ideal body shape also influenced modification. In some cultures, specific practices aimed to exaggerate certain features, such as elongated heads, as seen in ancient Peru and among the Mangbetu people of Central Africa. While these practices often had spiritual or status connotations, they were also deeply tied to prevailing aesthetic ideals, with elongated skulls considered a mark of beauty and intelligence. Imagine trying to find a hat that fits when your head is shaped like a cone. Definitely a unique fashion challenge. Even dental modifications, which seem so alien in ancient contexts, have modern parallels. While we no longer file our teeth into points for status, cosmetic dentistry, with its veneers, braces, and teeth whitening, is a multi-billion-dollar industry driven by aesthetic ideals. And in some subcultures, more extreme dental modifications like grills, removable decorative covers for teeth, or even permanent tooth gems directly echo the ancient practice of inlaying teeth with precious stones. It's like we're still trying to make our smiles shine, but now with less pain and a lot more fluoride. Though I suppose a gold grill is still a pretty strong status symbol, isn't it? The pain involved in these aesthetic modifications was often seen as a necessary part of the process, a testament to one's commitment to beauty and cultural norms. Enduring the discomfort demonstrated dedication and resilience, further enhancing the perceived beauty of the final result. It was a form of self-sacrifice for the sake of cultural acceptance and desirability. Imagine going through hours of painful procedures, not for a spiritual awakening, but just because everyone else was doing it and you wanted to look good for the village dance. The role of technology has fundamentally transformed body modification. Modern tattoo machines, sterile needles, sophisticated pigments, and advanced piercing tools have made the process faster, safer, and significantly less painful than ancient methods. This accessibility has undoubtedly contributed to its mainstream appeal. However, some argue that this ease has stripped the practices of their ritualistic depth and the profound significance that came from enduring immense pain and risk. It's like we've traded the arduous pilgrimage for a quick flight, getting to the destination faster, but perhaps losing some of the journey's meaning. The materials used in these aesthetic modifications were often chosen not just for their durability, but for their visual appeal. Polished wood, gleaming metals, vibrant shells, and precious stones were all incorporated into piercings, plugs, and other adornments. The craftsmanship involved in creating these pieces was often exquisite, reflecting the value placed on both the modification itself and the materials used. It was like a medieval jewelry store, but the jewelry was designed to go into your body, not just around it. The internet and social media have also played an unprecedented role in the spread of body modification trends. Images and ideas from diverse cultures, both ancient and modern, can be shared globally in an instant, inspiring new forms of self-expression and accelerating the evolution of styles. This digital connectivity has created a vast, interconnected tapestry of body art, allowing individuals to draw inspiration from across time and space. It's like a global art gallery, but the art is on people's bodies, and it's constantly updating. The influence of these aesthetic ideals often began in childhood, with modifications starting at a very young age to achieve the desired effect over time. This meant that the transformation was a gradual, lifelong process, deeply integrated into an individual's development and their understanding of their own body. It was a very long-term beauty regimen, starting practically from birth. The why behind modern body modification is as multifaceted as it was in ancient times. For some, it's about self-expression and individuality, a way to reclaim autonomy over their bodies. For others, it's about memory and commemoration, marking significant life events or honoring loved ones. For still others, it's about rebellion, challenging societal norms and expressing a countercultural identity. And for a smaller but significant group, it retains a spiritual or ritualistic dimension, a personal connection to ancient practices or a deeper understanding of self. It's a complex blend of personal and communal drives, echoing the rich tapestry of motivations we saw in the ancient world. The social pressure to conform to these aesthetic standards could be immense. In societies where certain modifications were considered essential for beauty or marriageability, individuals who did not undergo the procedures might face social ostracism or difficulty finding a partner. This highlights how deeply intertwined personal appearance was with social acceptance and survival in ancient communities. It was like a medieval version of peer pressure, but the stakes were much, much higher than just getting the latest smartphone. The very permanence of body modification continues to hold a unique allure. In a fleeting world of temporary trends and disposable goods, a tattoo or a scarification mark is a lifelong commitment, a testament to a moment, a belief, or an identity that the wearer wishes to carry with them forever. This enduring quality connects us directly to our ancient ancestors, who also sought to make lasting statements on the most intimate canvas of all, their own skin. It's like a very personal, very permanent diary and written in ink and scars and for the world to see. The very act of displaying these aesthetic modifications was a form of communication. It signaled a person's adherence to cultural norms, their willingness to endure for beauty, and their understanding of what was considered attractive within their society. These living artworks were a constant visual dialogue, reinforcing shared values and defining the parameters of beauty for all to see. It was like a very public art exhibition, where the exhibits were people, and the theme was what makes us beautiful. So, as you slowly drift into slumber, consider the quiet echoes of ancient artistry that still resonate in our modern world. The tattoos, the piercings, the subtle alterations we see today are not just fleeting fads, they are part of a continuous human story, a testament to our enduring desire to mark our bodies, to express our identities, and to find meaning in the very skin we inhabit. The mysterious origins of body modification whisper to us from the distant past, reminding us that the impulse to transform ourselves is deeply ingrained, a timeless human art form that continues to evolve, even as we sleep, and now as the last echoes of our journey fade into the silence of the night. Let your mind gently let go of the images of ancient rituals and primitive tools. Feel the gentle whir of the fan, the soft weight of the blanket, and the silence that envelops you. The fears and desires of the distant past, the marks on your body and the deep meanings behind them, are now just whispers in the wind, stories told in the peaceful darkness. Your journey tonight is a curious exploration, a gentle journey through a world gone by. There is nothing to fear, only the gentle embrace of sleep, drawing you deeper, deeper into its peaceful silence. Everything is fine, everything is quiet, and the night brings only peace. So, as you drift off to sleep, imagine the ancient body, sculpted and adorned not just for ritual or status, but for the sheer, compelling pursuit of beauty. The mysterious origins of body modification whisper to us from the distant past, reminding us of humanity's enduring fascination with its own form and its willingness to transform itself in the ever-shifting mirror of aesthetic ideals. And perhaps, just perhaps, the quiet hum of ancient artistry and the faint echoes of aesthetic ambition are the deepest lullaby of all, a gentle murmur of humanity's oldest beauty secrets,